The heroin entering Justin Bemis's veins has had a long journey to Rutland, Vermont. Law enforcement told me his heroin is likely coming from Colombia. So I headed to the country where the U.S. has spent more than $10 billion fighting the drug war in the last 15 years. We wanted to see what all that money is doing to stop the flow of heroin into the U.S. As soon as I arrived at the airport in Bogota,
La operación inició en el 2011.
the Colombia National Police assured me they're dealing with the drug problem. They showed me how successful they've been intercepting packages going out of the country.
They just found 7 kilos of cocaine wrapped in this copper wire. This package was bound for the U.S.
I had to give it to them. Drug traffickers are very creative.
This is pure cocaine inside of a false candy shell.
While there's been a sharp increase in cocaine production,
La zona andina.
Colonel Jose Roa is proud to report they've reduced poppy production, the key ingredient for heroin. And almost as if to make the point that law enforcement is working, a plane load of accused drug traffickers were paraded before our cameras. From the looks of it, you'd think the drug war is a success, but obviously there's still a heroin problem, and production is slightly up this year.
So we're going to board these planes and get on choppers to go see the poppy fields.
The DEA and the Colombia National Police are taking us along on a special mission to the poppy growing region of Colombia, where leftist insurgents battle the government for control. They run drug trafficking in the region. Just days before our arrival, the FARC ambushed a military battalion nearby, killing 11 soldiers. This in the midst of peace talks.
Siga, siga, siga.
So we're in the Black Hawk helicopter thousands of feet into the mountains here, and it's so hard to believe that they're growing the poppy right down there.
This is an expensive operation, partly financed by the U.S. This helicopter is one of more than a dozen Blackhawks given to Colombia by the U.S. At $13 million a pop, it cost $4,500 an hour to fly this thing. Colombian authorities spent days securing the area before our arrival. We're now entering guerrilla territory.
El cultivo está a unos 200, 300 metros. Está mezclado con maíz, al parecer, porque esa es la modalidad de los campesinos acá. Cultivos ilegales con cultivos legales.
After a short hike down the slope, there it was. Fields of poppy hidden within the crops.
This is really where the heroin trade begins, with this poppy field 8,000 feet in the mountains.
This plot of land could literally be a minefield.
This is looking for mines.
Yeah, first the dog goes, smells them out, and then they do it with the metal detector.
Do you think they have lookouts right now?
Sí, están observando en la parte alta de la montaña.
We're 3,000 miles away from Vermont. It's hard to believe Justin Bemis's heroin could have come from here.
It's pretty surreal to see this end of the heroin trail. I mean, this is really where it all starts.
This is the very beginning of the thread. You can't go back anywhere else. This is where it begins.
Jay Bergman was in charge of the DEA's South America division at the time of our interview. He's worked in Colombia for the last 15 years.
Law enforcement in the U.S. is frustrated because they say the problem is at the border. It's flooding in. How do you beat that?
You want to target the individuals that are creating the most damage. And so the job of the DEA in particular is to go after the most prolific, most prodigious criminal organizations that are flooding the streets of the U.S.
When it comes to trafficking heroin, he says Colombia's been a top producer. This has meant big profits for the drug traffickers, but for the families here who grow it, it's about survival.
How do you feel about the family over there that may be planting this?
These are poor farmers that are doing something that's illegal, but they're eking out a living.
And can you blame them? I mean, they're making a lot more money with these poppy plants over here than they would with berries.
Yeah, but in that sense, I can blame them because there's lots of people that aren't. There's lots of people understanding the harm effect that say, I'm not doing it, even though it might be profitable.
You can see that it's a beautiful flower before it turns into death all across the world.
A member of the DEA's heroin task force shows me how the locals cultivate poppy for heroin.
You cut a little skin off, and then the latex will start to seep out. And basically, as it seeps out, it will change color, and it will start to become darker. So then they'll either use a spoon or their finger, and they'll go around and they'll collect from the various pods. Now these people won't be the ones processing it into heroin. They'll just collect the latex and then go and sell it as a commodity.
I was told this was going to be an eradication mission, but the DEA is actually collecting poppy samples here to send back to the US, where scientists will look for genetic signatures in the plants to trace where the heroin is coming from.
How long do you think it would take to get from this field in Colombia to the streets of New York?
I would say at bare minimum 6 months to a year.
How much is a field like this worth?
This would probably yield around $8,000, $9,000.
It's a lot of money for
For a Colombian, that's a lot of money.
So they can't be too happy that we're standing in their field right now.
No,
Considering how difficult it was for us to get here, I mean, you can see how difficult this is to fight.
yeah, it's hard to detect it, hard to get to it.
And it's getting even harder. While law enforcement may have succeeded in cutting poppy production in Colombia for the last 10 years, their efforts may now need to go somewhere else.
The Mexicans are producing Colombian heroin. They're bringing the Colombian chemists to show them how to process it and what chemicals to use to get the same product.
Coming up, I meet a family on the other end of the heroin trail.
No grave, no grave.